This week on LCARA Ham Radio, we're going to take a look at which antennas are going to be installed on the newly erected tower, 48-foot tower at the tiny Fangorn property. That's what's coming up this week on LCARA Ham Radio. Well, welcome back to LCARA Ham Radio. I'm KY4BDP. Today we're going to do another video on the tower series. I've had a tower installed. We dug a hole. We made sure that it was going to hold enough concrete. We actually put the legs into the concrete. Then we erected the tower, and you can, I think it'll be over this shoulder, but I'll put a link to the beginning of that series. But this will be a part of the whole series. Which antennas am I going to start with on this tower? Well, the first antenna I want to talk about is the Comet GP6. Now, there are others like it, but this one is mine. And the GP6 is the bigger brother to the GP1 and GP3s. Now, I've used both of the other two for remotes and at my old QTH, but here at Tiny Fangorn, I am very rural, meaning that I don't even have a lot of local repeaters in my area, but there are a few further away. The GP6 has a little bit more gain. It's going to be pretty high up there for things around here, and I'm hoping that not only can I hit the one repeater in the county that I live in, but another repeater that's in the county just a little bit north and east, and possibly some repeaters going south down towards I-40. In any event, this will be at the very top of the tower, and the GP6 is roughly about 10 feet long, and so we're going to see how well it performs just generally. One of the great things about these Omnis is that they generally perform pretty well depending on your locality and how many mountains, hills, and so forth. But I don't want to stop there. Also on 2 meters, the GP6 will do 2 meters and 440. I want to be able to participate with the LCARA simplex net. Now, you guys may have seen some of the videos we've done on how to run a simplex net, how to run a regular repeater net for anybody wanting to start a net. And so my brother just so happened to have an antenna here. Now this is, I'm not sure which one this one is. I just bought it from him. There are a lot of these out there as well. This is 4 or 5 elements, and so we're going to, or I'm going to put this about midway down on the mast, and I'm going to use this for obviously that directionality, and I'm hoping I can hit some of those folks in the southern part of our listening area that can then relay me in on the simplex net. With simplex, you're not using a repeater, and so you're relying on others that may be able to hear you, but net control cannot hear you. So I'm hoping there's enough elements here, I'll have enough directionality plus the height of my tower that I'll have everything I need to also get in on the simplex net that we run. And simplex is a lot of fun because you need help. But that's not all. But wait, there's more. We're going to do a third antenna, and this is going to be a 3-band beam that another ham that has helped me a lot, KI4RWO, who also helped me erect the tower. He's supplied me this 3-band antenna, and we don't know if we have all of the parts. So in the next segment, I'm going to show you what I do have, and then I've got to take it to our Elmer AC4DM and see if we're missing anything, and see what we might need to put it together. That's going to be on the very bottom of the mast, right next to where the mast comes into the actual tower itself, on what's known as a thrust bearing. It'll be right above that bearing. So you'll have the GP6 at the very top with even more height, about 10 feet, plus the mast, which is going to be about 10 feet above the tower, plus the Yagi, and then the 3-beam horizontal antenna, the 3-band horizontal antenna. I believe it does 10, 15, and 20. And those are the 3 antennas I'm going to start with. One for 2 meter, 70 centimeter omnidirectional, one for 2 meter directional activity for simplex activity, and another 3-band HF antenna, 10, 15, and 20 to get started, plus a rotor so that we can turn the beam and this Yagi if I want to use the Yagi somewhere else in a different direction. So we're going to have a lot of fun getting some of these antennas put together and seeing what we need. We're going to build the GP6 as a part of this video. This Yagi's already built, so I don't have to do that. I am going to show you the pieces and parts for the 3-band HF antenna, but not sure what we need to put that together. So in the next segment, let's show you the HF antenna. Okay, so here in this segment, I just kind of want to walk around some of the parts that I have here for this 3-band HF antenna. I think this is a Cushcraft, don't quote me on that. Again, KI4RWO Ken helped supply this antenna from somebody who was getting out of the hobby, or maybe a Silent Key, I can't remember for sure. But you can see we've got a number of elements plus the loading coils and the aluminum rods coming out, and how this is actually being displayed on the ground is not the best for some of these elements, so we're going to have to straighten some of those back out. But this will be the HF antenna, and I don't know if I have all of the parts, so we're going to take this up to HQ AC4DM's place, and we're going to look at this probably during winter field day. Will be an opportune time to do that, because we're going to have a lot of folks at HQ for winter field day, and see if we have all the pieces parts, and if not, AC4DM might be able to supply the parts that'll be needed to get this operational. Let me go ahead and walk around to this side. And again, the way this is packaged isn't the greatest, but we will ultimately get this in the air and straighten out some of the elements that just laying on the ground get a little bit bent, which is unfortunate. But the good thing is it's mainly made out of aluminum, so the big sturdy bits aren't bent. It's the smaller elements that stick out, so we'll fix those and straighten them out. But this is the third antenna, and then back over here on the table, we've got the Yagi that KY4CKP supplied, and I'm going to utilize that for the simplex net. That's primarily what I have in my head anyway. And then we've got the GP6, the Comet GP6. First time I've ever used an antenna of this length from Comet, so we're going to see how that works out. And so in the next segment, I'm going to put this guy together, and I'm probably going to wait until tomorrow when it's a little bit sunnier. So in the next segment, let's put together the GP6 antenna from Comet. All right, we're back out here on a sunnier day, but a little bit windy, and it's also a little bit warmer, thank goodness. But we are going to be putting together the GP6. Now, if you purchased and or put together the GP1 or the GP3, there's not a lot to that installation. You've got your radials and you've got the collar, but this one comes in 2 pieces, so that when it's shipped, it's not going to cost you an arm and a leg and extra shipping prices because of its length. So this comes in this size to keep the shipping costs down. So let's take it out of the packaging. Let's see what our parts list is supposed to include, and then we'll put it together. Alrighty, I'm fighting a little bit of wind today, but hopefully I can keep things down to a dull roar with the dead cat on the microphone, but we shall see. So let's pull everything out of the packaging here. Let's see what we've got. Kind of curious. I've used the smaller versions of these antennas for quite some time. The GP3 is one of my favorite antennas ever. And used it at the old location, but I thought, well, if I'm going to have a tower, let's go ahead and go with a slightly larger version. Now, is that warranted? It may not be, actually. It depends on how you're going to use the antenna, how far the repeaters are from where you are, whether or not you have some height or elevation. This is going to be on top of the tower, so as you probably know if you've been following the series, we have erected the tower, and I'll try to put a shot up here of the tower, and then I'll also try to put a link right up here above my thumb to the overall series about erecting the tower. But anyway, here's our packaging now that everything's out of it, and let's check this against the parts list that we have right over here. Now, it comes with a piece of paper, just one piece, has the parts list plus the steps. 2 pieces of the antenna, or what we would call the fiberglass part of the antenna. And you can see there's going to be this going into here, so we'll delve into that a little bit later here. Plus, there's a part right on the end here that we're going to use for making sure the 2 parts don't come apart or come loose. We have a bag here. Looks like we've got our radials and the collar that fits down so that you can protect the UHF connector, PL259, that connects to the bottom of this guy from the elements. So we'll have this collar to put on. There's also a screw hole here, just like the other antennas, GP3, GP1. And then we've got our U-bolts, if you will, the collars, not the collars, but the mast attaching pieces here. And let's just open this up so we can see it. So here's our brackets. This will help us to affix it to a mast. And looks like it would work with a 2-inch mast, which is exactly what we're going to have up on top of the tower. And then we've got these pads. I got to make sure this stuff doesn't blow away. I don't want to create litter on my own property. But we've got our clamps here to tighten down elements to the antenna. So got these going for us. So we've got those, we've got the U brackets, we've got the collar in our back plus the radials, and then we've got our fiberglass pieces, which are the antenna itself. So I'd say we get started. Let's put this thing together. So there's a little bit of the antenna element that's protected by this fiberglass poking out right down here at the bottom. That's hard to see. Let me see if I can put this in front of the camera. That guy right there. In fact, let me go to the other side of the camera and make sure that you can see that. Too close. You can just see that little bit of metal sticking out there, but we'll leave it at that. Got it zoomed in a little bit, so it's hard to focus. Then we've got this part of the antenna. Now this will be the lower half, and you can see we've got this piece of the element. So the little piece of metal that's sticking out is going to go into this piece, and then we want to make sure we tighten that down. We've got some more screws, nuts, and washers in our little bag here, and there should be 2 screws that we're going to use to tighten this little brass element right here to the antenna element right there. And that way we'll make good electrical. Got to be careful with this end. All right, put these 2 little screws right there. Let's see if we can get these 2 pieces together. So you want to make sure that this metal element here goes all the way into this guy so that we can actually tighten the screws down. And you're going to want a work surface here where you can extend this a bit. The 2 screws are then going to go into 2 holes. Okay, got that in there. Now these 2 halves are going to go together, and the metal bit is going to push up, but this gives you your full length inside the fiberglass. And so according to our instructions, we connect the lower element to the upper element using the Phillips head screwdriver and those 2 small fiddly screws. And then the next piece would have been to put this in. So we've got to take this apart again, and it didn't mention putting this on first, but that is the case. And again, I'm just going off the instructions because I'm bad about instructions. Those will stay there, but this is supposed to go like that. Our gasket is supposed to go here also. And ultimately, this black piece and this gasket are going to go up into this black piece and screw together. Now we just have to get this metal piece back in and tighten those screws one more time. Again, these screws are going to prevent that metal element from coming apart. Then we put the 2 halves together once again, just like that. Now this is going to slide down a ways, and then this should screw on to the bottom element. And you've got that rubber gasket, and I just need to make sure. And this upper part just turns, and you've got your metal piece still on the inside. But and then you can feel it tighten up, and that should be the two pieces that are put together there. I think we're in pretty good shape. Now, it's at this point that this antenna is going to be a lot like the GP3 or the GP1. You've got this unit put together. So now we're going to concentrate down here on the bottom. Now, make sure you keep this cap on the bottom, and I'm bad about this. This may stick down someplace. If you're working on this inside, you don't have to worry about dirt or moisture, but I'm actually outside because my shack's a little bit small, but and the lighting's better out here. But anyway, now we're going to move on to the next. So it says, assemble the 3 radials, fasten the radial lock nuts securely with a spanner. Now, a spanner is basically a wrench here in the United States. We actually have a different tool in the United States that's actually called a spanner, but basically they're asking for a wrench. So what we need are these 3 nuts right here, and these are going to help to fasten the radials, these guys, to this bottom portion. And you're going to make sure that those nuts tighten down so that these don't have an opportunity to back out, or at least that's how I understand it. So let me go find a spanner, and we'll use that with our 3 nuts here, and we'll be ready. So we'll be right back. Okay, I'm back with my trusty wrench, and make sure that it is the right size for the net we're going to be using. And we're going to put the radials on next. So the first thing we're going to do is put the nut here on the radial, and we're going to screw this radial all the way in to where the nut is basically at the very top and it won't turn anymore. Let's go ahead and do that for all 3 of these. And then we're going to screw the radials onto the antenna, and then the nuts will come down and tighten against this housing right here, which I'm not sure what that's made out of. We're going to say it's aluminum or aluminium. Alrighty, and so we'll pull this down a little bit. Let me move a couple things so that you can see, but basically now what we're going to do is screw these into this bulbous little housing element right here. The main thing with these is you want to make sure it gets started. You don't want to obviously cross thread. So we want to make sure we get started. And you'll feel it stop. And then we're going to come back and tighten these nuts. So that's the first one. Second one went in a little easier. There we go. Come back and tighten that nut just a second. And our third one. And again, the G3 and GP1 go together almost identically. And for those of you that haven't maybe played with antennas like this, these radials are used as a way to project your energy. So these are pretty much a flat plane. You sometimes see radials pointing downwards a little bit on other antennas, but these are pretty much 90 degrees with the actual antenna element. So the radials are now on there. Now we're going to come back with our wrench, or spanner as it's being called, and we're just going to tighten these down a little bit so there's no opportunity for these radials to come loose or to work themselves loose. These are going to be up in high wind conditions, this antenna, and through vibrations and so forth, might try to back out. It's not likely, but with these nuts tightened down just a bit, you don't have to over tighten, that will prevent that from occurring. And we'll double check. And don't poke your eye out with these guys right here. Be careful. Probably should wear safety glasses. Could have put my sunglasses down. Done it that way, but you don't think about it until you're starting to think about safety sometimes. Alrighty, so we've got that down and fastened. Alrighty, had to step away for just a moment, and the wind was playing havoc with my microphone. Sorry about some of the audio there. So the next thing to do is to put these pieces, these brackets, into these mounting, or these U-joints, U-brackets, to these guys. Now, these fit into the collar here, this protective collar that we're going to put on the bottom of the antenna. This is to protect the cable connection to the antenna from the elements. And so it just fits just like that, and there'll be two of these, and then these brackets, or the U-joint that you've got here, is going to attach to the mast like this. So you'll have this sticking up plus your antenna on top, and then these will help affix to your mast. So if we put the second one on like that, so basically like that, and all we need to do for today is just to attach them to the antenna so that all the parts are together. They're not going to get lost, which is a problem. And then once we have this collar on, we're going to attach the collar with this bolt and washer, again, mainly just to keep from losing them for now, because we're not ready to put this up on the tower yet. The other thing I'm going to do is I'm going to leave this protective cap on the SO239 on the bottom of the antenna here, just so that dirt and that sort of thing. So what we need to do, there's a hole right here on this piece of pipe. We need to line that hole up with a hole that's also on the housing down here. You might notice this hole right here. I think you might be able to see that in the video. There's actually two holes. There's a small one and a larger one. You're going to want to match this hole with the larger one. So we're going to put that on, and you can see that they're lined up. And then the next piece, we're going to put our washer on the bolt here, and then we're just going to begin tightening down this bolt. And this is to prevent this collar from moving around, and ultimately we'll tighten that all the way down once we get it up on the antenna, or up on the tower, because we haven't attached our cable yet. And when KI4RWO Ken comes back, he's going to install the rotor and all three of the antennas, and when he's doing that, he'll need to get in here, attach the cable, wrap the cable where it connects to the antenna, and then put this collar back on, or this protective cover. So that only leaves the brackets that we have here that will ultimately affix this antenna to the mast that's going to be poking up out of the top. So we're going to put one of these on, since I've already got all the pieces put together. And here's the second one. We're going to put that one on, and I'm just going to tighten these bolts down just a little bit to prevent these from dropping off. Ultimately, Ken will tighten these once we have our antenna installed on the mast. And we don't have to worry about direction with this. This is omnidirectional, whereas the other two antennas, the Yagi, that I'm going to try to use for simplex-based communications, and the 3-band HF antenna, they are directional. That's why we talked about a rotor in some of the other videos, and we're going to be installing a rotor, a Yaesu-based rotor with a high-gain controller for turning the Yagi and the 3-band HF antenna. But this is omni, and it'll look something like this once we get it up on the tower, and then you'll see the mast coming up through here, and Ken will tighten all that down once we get to that point. Not today, though. So we've seen the three antennas that are going to go up on the tower. Some of you have been asking, well, what are you going to put up there? These are going to be the three antennas I'm going to put up at least initially. We're going to see how they respond. I'm going to try to use the GP6 for checking into our normal repeater net at LCARA. There's also a local net here in the area that I live in here in Tennessee, and I'm going to have another video on when you move, you need to check in with your local club and join and see how you might help out there. I'm going to continue to work with LCARA because I have a big role there, and we got a great bunch of people, but there may be a bunch of great people down here. So that's for another video. Got our three antennas ready to go. Mostly, we got to figure out if that 3-band HF antenna has all the parts. We're going to find out during winter field day, but that's it for now. I'm KY4BDP Brian for the Lake Cumberland Amateur Radio Association. Thanks for watching 73.